From Washington, I'm joined by the CBC's Keith Bogue and by Kimberly Atkins, who's the Washington bureau chief for the Boston Herald. Good evening and welcome to you both.
Thanks for having me.
I want to begin, let's listen all together to one of the extraordinary moments from this afternoon. This is a moment where Donald Trump to reporters is defending his original statement about the causes of the violence in Charlottesville. Let's listen to this together and then we'll talk.
There was no way of making a correct statement that early. I had to see the facts, unlike a lot of reporters.
Nazis were there.
I didn't know David Duke was there. I wanted to see the facts. And the facts, as they started coming out, were very well stated. In fact, everybody said his statement was beautiful. If he would have made it sooner, that would have been good. I couldn't have made it sooner because I didn't know all of the facts. Frankly, people still don't know all of the facts. It was very important to me. Excuse me. It was very important to me to get the facts out and correctly, because if I would have made a fast statement, and the first statement was made without knowing much other than what we were seeing. The second statement was made after with knowledge, with great knowledge. There's still things, there's still things that people don't know. I want to make a statement with knowledge. I wanted to know the facts.
Donald Trump defending the statement he first made on Saturday. Keith, we were speaking just last night about how Charlottesville represents a watershed moment for the Trump presidency. Given what we now know, what is today?
Today was an astonishing thing. I've covered Donald Trump now for 2 years, and I've seen a lot of extraordinary moments, but I have not seen anything quite like this. The clip you played, I think, is very revealing because I think it shows that even Donald Trump didn't know what he was going to say today. He knew what he thought, for sure, but he didn't know he was going to say it. He came out there and he explained that the reason why he said things differently or described a different situation yesterday from the one he described on Saturday was because he had knowledge. Within minutes, he had abandoned that explanation, reverted to the statement that he had made on Saturday, and began defending that take on it and completely abandoning his attempt yesterday to walk that back. That all seemed to be pouring spontaneously out of his head. He had thought about it, I'm sure, but had no intention of saying it.
So it was, in so many respects, a stunning, just breathtaking afternoon. Kim, as you watched it, what did it reveal to you about Donald Trump?
Well, I think it revealed exactly what he truly believed. I mean, on Sunday, he gave this very rehearsed, scripted speech. He seemed uncomfortable giving it. He seemed as if he was saying someone else's words. Today, he spoke clearly as himself and revealed exactly what he was thinking. He was forceful. He was clear. He was angry at times. And he was directing that anger to protesters who went to Charlottesville to protest these white supremacist hateful groups and put them on the same moral equivalence as these hateful groups. And I think that's what we truly believe. And this idea that he has to research something before thinking about it and getting all the facts, his Twitter account belies that suggestion.
Kim, in refusing to denounce bigotry quickly, adequately, some are suggesting that the president is himself a bigot. I was struck by the Chicago Sun-Times editorial headline calling him America's bigot in chief. Is that what we're facing here, the reality of what we're facing here, Kim?
I think you can look at a lot of things. You can look at his remarks on the campaign trail, where he repeatedly referred to minorities, people of color, religious minorities in the most derogatory terms, that Muslims need to be kept out of the country, that Mexicans are rapists and criminals, that, what do black people have to lose? And he only speaks about them in terms of crime rates. So I think that if you're looking for empirical evidence, you can find it there. But I think there's also another layer here, is that he's a smart man and he realizes that a lot of people who espouse some of these very negative views that we saw play out in Charlottesville are people who voted for him. And I think that there is a deep reluctance to rebuke people who support him.
Well, pick up on that, Keith, because we have been talking about this just this week, the political cover that Donald Trump gives to people like David Duke. Richard Spencer, let's talk about how they have responded to this, Keith. David Duke tweeting, the former KKK Grand Wizard, tweeting his thanks to Donald Trump for blaming what he called the alt-left. Richard Spencer, also white supremacist, tweeting his praise and calling Trump's statement fair and down to earth. So the effect, Keith, again, does this give them more political cover?
Absolutely, it does. This was a great day for them. He said exactly what they would want him to say. They heard him offer what was almost like it had the thin veneer of an intellectual defense of the Ku Klux Klan and anti-Semites and racists and so on. This is what they want. They want people to have a discussion about race in America, but they want them to say things like, I'm not really a racist, but. And that's what Donald Trump is giving them, a reason to say but. A reason to say, when Donald Trump talks about how the next thing they'll be doing is pulling down monuments for George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, that's where this is all leading. That just plays so perfectly into a narrative that the fringe right wants to promote. The whole idea of their project is to radicalize white people, to make them believe that they have an interest in getting into a race war in the United States, to make them believe that they are the oppressed community in the country. And all of this serves that. That's why they're saying, thank you, Donald Trump.
So in referencing the far right, the alt-right, he brought in a phrase that isn't commonly used, the alt-left. So let's listen to this together, because this is Donald Trump's answer to a reporter's question if he thought the alt-right was responsible. And this is what he said this afternoon.
When you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying,
define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define
Senator
it for me.
McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at him? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
This is Senator McCain's statement.
Let me ask you this. What about the fact they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. I'm not finished, fake news. That was a horrible day. I will tell you something. I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent.
So there you go, again, listening to one of the exchanges from this afternoon. And Kim, coming back to the point that you were making earlier, in the use of this phrase, alt-left, trying to create the moral equivalency between the KKK, the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, the hate groups, and the other protesters who showed up to counter the beliefs and the actions of that first group, and seeking, again, to put them on the same moral footing.
Yes, and this is singing from the hymnal of white supremacy. That's the exact sort of language that they use to justify themselves. And if you look at the video from Charlottesville, what you saw were white supremacists, again, a group that should be the easiest group to denounce next to ISIS, right? And they were carrying torches, they were armed to the teeth, they were dressed in paramilitary gear, including flak jackets. They came ready for battle. And this idea that it was some sort of fair fight and they were only defending themselves from this equally, terrible group it's just factually incorrect. It's nonsense.
So, Keith, let's look to consequences now, political consequences. If we pull up what House Speaker Paul Ryan said, he was very clear in making distinction between the two. His tweet saying that we must be clear, in fact, there can be no moral ambiguity, that bigotry is counter to all of this country stands for. And then the other thing that was revealing politically, I think, was the photo that Stephen D'Souza showed us of the brand new Chief of Staff, John Kelly, downcast, arms crossed, off to the side, as Trump was going rogue, as his people later said he did. People are looking for a Republican response here. What are likely to be the repercussions of this?
We've seen a lot of this over the last 2 years. We've seen it specifically from Paul Ryan. During the campaign in 2016, he denounced Trump briefly as a racist and then went on to support him anyway. I think we should be probably case-hardened to the idea that there might be some talk about disappointment with Trump, but it very seldom has led people to finally denounce him permanently, separate themselves from him. That's the kind of thing that I think would be a real political move on the part of Republicans. There are others who might be doing it, and we might want to talk about the Manufacturing Council resignations today. But I think that, as I say, we've seen this kind of thing before, and Republicans have a tendency to talk tough about it, but then do nothing.
So, last few seconds to you, Kim. Do you anticipate resignations?
I think if Republicans don't, well, I don't know if there'll be resignations from this White House. This is the White House that has supported everything that the president has done so far. But I think in terms of the Republican Party, this is a moment of truth. I think if they do not stand up with words and actions against what the president said, they will be tagged with the same shadow that the president cast today.
Kimberly Atkins, Keith Bogue, both in Washington, thank you for your perspectives after this extraordinary moment in U.S. politics. Thank you both.
Thanks, Heather.